Welcome. Today we're diving into the minds of coaches and directors here at Northwest. I'm your host, Boston Mendenhall, and we'll be talking to and have the privilege to talk with Coach Vogt, the mastermind behind the the district's very first state volleyball championship. Down to the foundations, what it took to build it, the strategies behind getting to the chip, and what the victory means for the program. And Coach Vogt's unique approach to coaching and leadership. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Coach Vogt.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats on your championship, by the way. Before you were winning championships and everything, kind of how did you get your start in volleyball? I know you played in college where your daughter's currently playing, so how do you kind of get your start?
Yeah, so I grew up in a really small town where you just kind of did everything. So I started playing volleyball in high school. That's where I actually grew in love with it. I loved my teammates. It was just a really positive experience and had that fortunate opportunity. Actually, I started at Iowa State. I played volleyball at Iowa State for a year and transferred to UNI, which was a perfect fit for me. And I really enjoyed all the friendships I made through that. And I was just really lucky to have some pretty amazing coaches in high school and college.
And were those coaches the kind of people who inspired you to start coaching?
Yeah, I always talk about I was fortunate enough, and it wasn't even necessarily coaches that coached me, but our football coach at Appling Parkersburg, Coach Thomas. He was also our athletic director, so he had a huge influence on the athletic program. But our track coach, Mr. Kearns, Mr. Coonan, my high school volleyball coach, and Bobby Peterson, my college volleyball coach, were all huge influences on not just the love of the game and athletics and competing, but life in general. Every one of those people just truly made you feel like no matter what, they cared about you as a person more than anything else. And it was a great program to be a part of.
Yeah, and then did you initially get your start when you accepted the job here, or did you coach somewhere else before? I couldn't necessarily find that.
So I started coaching when I started teaching here, right out of college. I was the freshman volleyball coach at Waukee, and then I think 1 or 2 years later, I was the assistant varsity coach at Waukee. And then actually, when we started having a family, I took a break from coaching for a while. And then I started coaching at club. I coached at Powerplex for a while. I wanted opportunities for kids to be able to do multiple sports. So I coached a group of girls that played basketball together so they could have a schedule that allowed them to do basketball and volleyball and not have to pick, which is kind of what inspired me to continue coaching. I just loved kids being able to do all of it.
Mm-hmm. And so initially when you took this job, and obviously you kind of had the opportunity to have your own teams, whether it was the freshman team or whatever, what were kind of the foundations or the core pillars that you wanted to build this team on when you got the job here?
I think most importantly, I wanted to have a positive influence on girls beyond the game of volleyball because I feel like athletics teaches you so much about life. And I was lucky enough to have those people in my life, so I wanted to do the same thing for other people. That's the biggest part of it because coaching is it's a grind sometimes. So you have to love it more than the sport itself. The positive influence you can have just on young people is amazing. And you get to see that every day in the gym and their excitement for each other. And when the opportunity came up to coach at a new school, I was super excited about the fact that I could build community between Waukee and Northwest and then other programs in the community, just club programs.
In the area?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then was that initially from your coaches, when they were influencing you just off the court as well, just on the court? Is that how your previous coaches from UNI and ISU?
Yeah, those. So actually my high school coaches, they were really good about, and I feel like I had just almost a Disney World experience when I went to high school. I had coaches that were super tough on me, but they could be because I never doubted for 1 second how much they cared about us as people. And all of my teammates felt the same, right? Mm-hmm. They could hold us to high expectations, and we just wanted to keep doing them because we enjoyed playing the game, and we enjoyed being around our teammates, and we enjoyed having high expectations.
Mm-hmm. So kind of getting into the season, which obviously last season was very successful. I had a coach previously explain to me, I play lacrosse, so my coach has in the past explained, or one of my coaches, about how it's kind of like a chess. I don't know if you've ever played chess, but there's an opening, a middle, and the end game. So all of them have different strategy and how you approach them. Mm-hmm. So kind of in your opening, how do you approach initially getting the team together and finding the roster and then also like starting your beginning chemistry, because obviously it's a lot different than in the middle of the season or the end of the season.
Yeah, I am fortunate enough, like I get to see a lot of these kids outside of just volleyball. Like I watch them compete in other sporting events. I see them in different club programs. I think that's a big part of being able to put the right group of people on the court that will work toward the same goal. And I mean, there are multiple kids that are really good at one position, but how do you find that group of people that work the best together? And it might not be the position they want to play, but it's what's best for the team. I think that's just part of the art of coaching, right? Like it has to be the team first, not individual first. And if you lose that mentality, I think that's where things start to break down.
Mm-hmm. And then when you're starting to like, when you initially like walk into like the job for the first time and you get like the open tryouts, I'm guessing it's very much overwhelming, because especially at least for a player, whenever I go to like a tryout or something like that, it's like everything's going on. So like how do you kind of approach that? Are you more open-minded to what everyone's about, or do you kind of have to like look at what a player's specific position is first before you can like look to possibly have them switch up or play at something else?
Yeah, one of my biggest philosophies is I really like to play athletes. I don't necessarily think you have to be a good volleyball player to be good at volleyball. I think athletes, like kids that can play multiple things or can move really well on the court, they can add something to the environment of the gym that's different. I was fortunate enough when I started coaching, I'd never been a head coach before. I was thankful that Mr. Dewey gave me the opportunity, but I was blessed with an amazing assistant coach who had run her own club program, who had been a head coach multiple places. And she kind of mentored me through everything, like how to set up practices. Like, so I told her what my vision was, and then she kind of like helped refine the like details of all of it. I still reach out to her today because she's not with us anymore. She took a administrator job, which I'm sure she's great at. But you find those people in your life that, have maybe have wisdom or have done that role before. And I think that's part of coaching too, is you have to like complement yourself with your weaknesses and basically find the people that can fill those holes, I think.
Yeah, so kind of speaking with that too, is that kind of what you look to kind of also fill your team with when you know you have certain weaknesses? Do you look like on a JV team to like try to find someone or of a certain role? Because I know at least with this year we had majority of everyone was seniors, something about like 75% of the roster, is that right? Something
yeah, absolutely.
Seniors. So like you kind of had like, at least this year you kind of had to fill all the spots. Where were you kind of looking in order to do that?
Well, this year we started with 4 returning letter winners, so it was kind of nice because it was basically a blank slate. Like we could create whatever we wanted to in the gym. And again, there's so many talented kids, especially in the school. And there's a lot of really good volleyball players. So you just have to find the right group of people. And for example, you can have like 2 really good setters, but maybe one's really good at talking and the other one isn't, and your team needs some energy and they need someone who can talk. So you have to find the right fit of people. And also, I think it's also having like really hard conversations with kids, like, here's where I need you to grow. This is what I need to see out of you. But if you look at that long term, like that's a life goal. Like that's something that those conversations are something that they can use to get better at everything, right? So maybe you don't communicate enough. And I bet it's not only on the volleyball court. You could see it in multiple phases of their life, right? I try to approach it as like everything's a learning opportunity. This is life, right? Yeah. Like we want people to help us and to like mentor us and get us to where we need to be.
So kind of like after you've kind of, I guess, formulated the team and got everything like put together, you kind of go into like your first games, which are probably kind of lower barrier to some extent. You're kind of just like seeing what you have, playing with everything.
Yep.
How do you kind of approach just your mentality, so like the first few games and getting everything down, knowing that like you don't have to have it now, but you have to have it later? So what's your kind of approach to that?
Well, I'm a big believer in philosophy or fundamentals, and the girls will tell you this. So I'm always like, you can't be a good basketball player without going into the gym every day and shooting baskets, right? You have to shoot. Same thing for volleyball. You have to work on your passing footwork every single day. Is it fun? No. But is it going to make you better? Absolutely. I'm a big believer on serving, serve, receive, passing, footwork, and blocking. So those are simply the 4 things that we do every day, right? And all of that incorporates our ball control. I'm very open with the girls. Like, I know that this practice might not be entertaining for you, and we're going to do some fun stuff at the end, but you have to be disciplined and you have to do the work before you get to the fun, right? And they've bought into it, which is awesome. Like, they might not enjoy it, but they've bought into it, and you can see it because they want to get better. And it's just the grind every day, like not taking those simple things for granted. I think sometimes it's just fun to go out and play, right?
For sure.
But you can't get better skill-wise if you just don't do the work.
Yeah. Kind of when coming to that work, how do you like keep your players motivated to something, but at the same time holding them accountable? Because I know that's really hard for, at least like from a vision of like a coach, when to talk to players, like how do you still have it fun but like still hold them accountable?
Yeah, I think if you're really like honest with the girls, like everybody wants to be successful, but not everybody wants to do the work to be successful. We do goal setting at the beginning of the season, then we'll do a goal check probably within the next couple of weeks, like mid-season. Last year was a really cool opportunity where we had the girls write down their goals, and almost every single one of them on their goal sheet at the beginning of the season put down state champions, which I truly believe they thought they could do it, which is exciting considering how we ended. So I think it's just, setting those goals and keeping them on track it's easy to get distracted by all this stuff going on. And they're teenagers, so they should have fun too. The motivating part, you just got to find, each kid is different, especially each kid on a team. So find what motivates the kid. So you just got to get to know the kid more than anything else.
And kind of with that, like, obviously people have everyone's different, obviously. So how do you tailor everyone individually, whether that's like your own daughters versus someone who's been on the team for a long time versus someone who it's their very first year, they're a freshman. I mean, they're like basically getting thrown into the deep end, being on varsity.
Yeah, it's honestly those constant conversations like, hey, what do you need? What's going on? Hey, you weren't yourself at practice today. How do we help you? And just doing those checks all the time with players. And I've gotten better at that as I've coached more. Like, instead of it, I truly want to feel that connection with the player. And I think that if they trust you as a coach, they'll start to tell you those things and not feel like they can't be honest with you, or, they can't really tell you how they're thinking or feeling. But at the same time, like, there are some kids that like a lot of praise and some kids that want to hear the feedback, like, give it to me straight. Yeah. So you just honestly have to know the kid, and you can only do that by spending time with them and building a relationship with them.
How high would you value, like, just the relationships that everyone has with each other, whether that's just like how much you want like your team leaders specifically to like approach how they are talking with everyone, like how high is that based on like your values, like your connectivity?
You bet. Relationships on a team are the most important thing. You can have a lot of really good players on a team, but if they don't work together as a unit or cohesively with the same goal, you will not be successfyou there's no way around it. You just have to find a way to get them to support each other. And I think the cool thing about this team this year is you can tell it on the court that they genuinely are happy for each other and just really want to be successful. And I always tell girls, I'm like, this is your team. This is your story. You get to write it. You want to have fun this season? Have fun. Like, what do you have to do to make it fun? What do you have to do to be successful? Basically empowering them to be like, you write the story. The pen is in your hand, so you create it.
Yeah. I mean, also in the mid-season, obviously you have to have changes and everything.
Yep.
How do you kind of talk about players when it comes to like playing time? Because obviously there's a lot of difficult decisions as a coach you have to make, because that's ultimately your job, is to make the hard decisions that no one wants to make, whether that's moving someone else or switching someone out who's been playing for half the season. How do you kind of take your time to talk to players about that?
Yeah, I have a conversation at the beginning of the season about, like, I ask them, what do you see your role on the team? And then we as coaches share what we see their role as. And then when we do that mid-season check, we'll do the same thing. I'm a big believer in, like, I'm not just playing a kid because they're good at volleyball. I'm playing a kid because I see the potential that they have to get better, and I want to develop the team. I don't want it to be a bunch of just really talented volleyball players. Yeah. So I think part of that is just my own coaching philosophy, and getting people to buy in, like, you don't think you're very good at this, but we see how good you can be. So getting them to believe in that. is the biggest part of
Yeah,
it.
getting them to believe what you see, what they don't.
Yep. Yeah, and that's just creating opportunities for them to be successful in that, whatever we want them to do. So I'm also a big believer in, I'm not a coach that'll pull somebody really fast if they're making an error, because part of the game, 90% of the game of volleyball is mental.
Yeah.
So they have to kind of work through that. I am a big believer in pulling them aside and being like, what are you telling yourself right now? Like, where's your self-talk?
Yeah.
And coaching up on, I love to coach the psychology part of volleyball.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I was actually about to bring that up because one of the most fascinating things that I've found about volleyball is, like, at least with something like basketball or like the sport that I play in lacrosse, you're able to, like, if you make a mistake, you're able to make it up by other means, whether that's you play harder defense or get a different steal. But with volleyball, you kind of have this one moment, one chance, you make the play or you don't. And there's not, like, yes, you can make up for it at later points, but, like, you have to have the ability to just focus so much on your technique and, like, I am going to get this next ball, because if you're, like, hesitant at all or anything like that, so, like, how do you, especially with younger players, how do you kind of get their mindset in the right spot, whether that's the conversations you have on the sideline, like, how do you kind of switch that? Because at least I know that sometimes I struggle with that, and sometimes I have to help my teammates out with that, because they're kind of losing it, or they're a bit of a hothead and they need to, like, chill out.
Yeah. A lot of it is we practice some drills in practice to kind of coach them through, like, resetting and then the mindset, like, just the endurance. So there's 2 drills that I love doing. It's 1 minute pepper, and you keep peppering until everybody on the team has been peppering with ball control for a minute. Well, they make a lot of errors during that time. As soon as they make an error, they have to reset, and we're doing it again. It's frustrating, right? But during that whole drill, we're talking about reset, right? You made an error, move on. Let's go. We got to do it again. There's also another, like, 9-person pepper drill where it's hard, and the hitters and the setter have to go back and forth underneath the net, and it's mentally challenging. And the whole time, we're not quitting until they can do it. And it's that empowerment piece. Like, we told you could do it. Look at this. You guys just did something really hard. We knew you could do it. Just giving those moments. And then I always like to find players, like, I found a libero that basically talked about, if you're passing the ball and it's not a good pass, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I just shanked the ball, or that was a terrible pass, think in your mind, next time I'm going to make the pass to the middle for the setter. Like, what can I do for my setter to make this better? Like, what can I do for my teammate? Instead of making it all about them, you know, and the self, like, what's it called? It's like, basically, they all want to perform the best. Like, they all want to do their best. That's just the environment we live in, right? They all work really hard, and they want to perform their best. And sometimes you just make errors, right? So you got to switch your mindset. Like, how can I make this ball better for the setter? Yeah. And I've coached a lot of that this year, especially during timeouts in practice.
Kind of with that, like, your whole leadership style, do you want your kind of senior leaders to eventually be a part of that, kind of helping the team reset? Because obviously, like, yes, you're on the sideline and you're right there and you can coach them through it. But at the same time, like, you would want a player to do it, I'm guessing. And then also just, like, they are the people on the court, and they're the people making the decisions of, do I pass the ball to this person, or I pass the ball to this person, whether you're running a play or not. So, like, how do you kind of delegate that to eventually have your team be able to run by itself?
You bet. I don't necessarily like to give that responsibility to one player. Because this team is so young, I'm coaching all of them on the same technique, with the goal of eventually them being able to do it to each other, right? So our mission statement for Northwest Volleyball is grace, and it's grit, respect, attitude, communicate, and encourage. So the last one, encourage, basically when you see a teammate who's having a hard time, what do you know about that player that you need to say or do to help get them back on track? And that's the ultimate goal, right? And honestly, that's life, right? It's hard. So find your people, right? Who's going to say the right things and do the right things to get you back on track? But ultimately, it's internal, right? I need to tell myself, what do I need to tell myself to get to where I need to be? You always naturally have those, like, leaders, but I don't like to put anyone in a position just to feel all of that.
The pressure of the team.
I like everybody to kind of have a part of that. And I think there's a lot to be said for teams that are player-led, and that's ultimately the goal, right? You want your team to, like, encourage each other and get each other out, and yeah, that's why I'm so excited about this group, is because I already feel like they've made so much progress that direction. And just their excitement on the court has been fun to watch.
Yeah. Kind of going into the idea of this like end game. So I know that in the championship, first of all, at least when some people I was talking to, you guys were not like opted to like even make it to the championship. You're like something like Sweet 16 or even Elite 8.
Right.
And then when you guys got to the championship, I was able to be at that game. Absolutely incredible game, right? You guys went up 2-0, but then playing a very, very tough Dowling team that you guys lost to previous in the season, but also had beat earlier in the season. So kind of going into the final set, which is kind of like sudden death to some extent of volleyball. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but what was kind of your mentalities going through in that championship game, just going through your head of this final time and trying to win?
Yeah.
Knowing you were down.
That's really cool. I just got goosebumps thinking about it. So you go out and you gather as a team like in between that fourth and fifth set. And I went out in the hallway, and I don't think I even had to say a whole lot. I went out there and the girls were already doing exactly what I was talking about. We're coaching this team to do now. You could tell by the look in their eyes they were not going to lose. Like I could feel it as a coach. You could see it on their faces. You could just, there's just a vibe and an energy about it. You just knew it. Like balls weren't going to hit the floor, and they were not going to give up without a fight. And even if they didn't win that last set, I would have been 100% satisfied, because I knew that they left it all on the court. And that's ultimately the goal, right? It was awesome to win that state championship, but the journey to get there and watching like this group that won last year start as sophomores, and like the progress they made from that day, and just the additions that we had to add, it was just, I don't know, the whole journey was cool.
Would you say, like, I'm guessing this is probably like at some point of like a pinnacle career, considering you've been like a head coach for 3 years, and the third year you have a championship, which is great. Would you say that's probably like one of your favorite moments, just being at the tournament with the whole team?
Absolutely. That whole week at the state tournament, just watching the girls play to their maximum potential, the love that they had on the court, the crowd, like walking out of the state championship game, we've never had that many people at any of our volleyball games. And I think just to feel the love, and then you get messages from like Waukee Middle and Timberline from teachers, and they're all watching it, and like how much it united the community. Like that's ultimately what it's all about. It was just a cool moment in sports. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and that's what sports are all about.
Yeah,
so
it is. It really is.
Yeah, kind of coming to a close, but what can, obviously the season started and you've had a very, very successful start. I'm honestly surprised myself, because I was like, I'm guessing, obviously I know your coaching ability, championship, right? So I know that the team's going to be fine and they're going to get to the spots that we need to be, but I didn't expect the kind of beginning to be as good as it was. And so kind of just tell everyone, I guess, what we can expect from this team coming into playoff time and eventually hoping to repeat.
Yeah. Well, I can get you to believe that everybody on this team has bought into the program and what we stand for and what we believe. And I know they're young, so there's going to be lows and there's going to be highs. But I have never had more fun coaching a group of kids, just because of the true, genuine care that they have for each other, and how like they want to stay at practice later. It's the coolest thing. Like, just want to get better, want to be in the gym, want to work hard. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And they do take volleyball pretty seriously. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and taking this time out of your day to be on this interview.
Thank you for the time. That was fun.
Yeah, and I can't wait to come to more volleyball games, and I think everyone can't wait until the day where we're sitting on our phones in class watching the matches when we make it to the tournament. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun. A lot of fun.
Thanks again to Coach Vogt for coming on the show. You can find all information around the volleyball team on their Instagram, which will be linked in the show notes, along with tickets to the next home game against Waukee, which is Tuesday the 24th. Game starts at 7:30. Stay tuned for the next episode with the boys' head golf coach, Coach Combs. This is Behind the Huddle, and until next time.